According to Russian President Vladimir Putin, the breakup of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical disaster of the 20th century. Russia still cannot recover from that collapse. Although the country faced serious disaster and economic chaos after the dissolution of the USSR, from a geopolitical perspective, although controversial, but arguably Moscow was in a far better position during the so-called wild 1990s than it is now. I'm your host Kasim, and welcome to our brand new series on Russia's past, present and future. In episode 1, we will discuss the aftermath of the Soviet Union. But just before we begin, please kindly visit our website kjvids.co.uk and subscribe to our plan, which will give you unlimited access to our content and the full transcripts of these reports. Your support will help KJVids stay financially independent and will allow us to produce more reports. The collapse of the Soviet Union left some 30 million Russians outside the borders of the Russian Federation. At the same time, it left the United States as the sole superpower. As such, it treated Russia as a de facto defeated country since Russia lost the Cold War. Under the leadership of Boris Yeltsin, Moscow aimed to promote Russian integration into the West, as well as to secure Western assistance from the internal transformation of Russia's economy. Such a policy turned Russia into effectively a US vassal state. America even meddled in the Russian 1996 elections in order to secure the victory of widely unpopular Boris Yeltsin. 2 years later, Russia faced financial crisis that led the country to the edge of bankruptcy. In spite of poor economic performances in 1997, for the first time, Russia participated in economic discussions at the G7 summit in Denver, Colorado. The following year, the Russian Federation was integrated as a full member of this intergovernmental economic organization consisting of the 7 largest IMF-described advanced economies in the world. That year, the G7 became the G8. Meanwhile, the West sponsored many separatist movements within Russia. Throughout the 1990s, Russian security forces had to deal with Chechen and Dagestan secessionists, while numerous administrative regions of Russia sought greater autonomy. In spite of that, Russia managed to maintain its influence over most former Soviet states. When the Soviet Union collapsed, a Commonwealth of Independent States was established to serve as a forum for the former Soviet republics. It was mainly a vehicle that Russia used in order to preserve its influence and control over its near abroad, including Ukraine, Belarus, Moldova, and to some extent even the Caucasus and Central Asia. Russia also preserved certain influence in the Balkans during the 1990s. Although Russian foreign policy in response to the Yugoslav wars and NATO aggression against Yugoslavia in 1999 gravitated towards Western interests, Russian troops captured the Pristina airport in the aftermath of the Kosovo War. The incident resulted in a tense standoff between Russian and NATO troops, but was resolved peacefully. Russian forces stayed in Kosovo until 2003, when the Kremlin decided to pull out its troops from both Kosovo and Bosnia-Herzegovina. Russian troops played significant roles in many post-Soviet conflicts. They were deployed to Tajikistan that faced civil war from 1992 to 1997. Russian senior officials at the time stated that an effective defense of the borders of the former Soviet Union serves the interests of CIS countries and the national interests of Russia. They also added that the presence of over 200,000 ethnic Russians in Tajikistan placed the region in Russia's direct sphere of influence. Russian forces and volunteers took part in the Georgian Civil War, including conflicts in Abkhazia and South Ossetia. As a result, both Abkhazia and South Ossetia, backed by Russia, gained de facto independence from Georgia, and the Kremlin managed to preserve its influence in Georgian Adjara province as well. Russia ended its 2-century military presence in Georgia in November 2007 by withdrawing from the 12th military base in Adjara's port city of Batumi. Moscow still plays a major role in Pridnestrovye, also known as Transnistria. During the 1992 war between Moldova and the self-claimed Pridnestrovian Moldovan Republic, Russia's 14th Guards Army, based in Transnistria, unofficially backed the PMR forces while Romania provided military support to Moldova by supplying weaponry, ammunition and armed vehicles to Moldovan forces. In July 1992, a ceasefire agreement was signed and Russia managed to preserve both Moldova and Pridnestrovye under its control, although it doesn't share common borders with any of them. Throughout the 1990s, Russia's influence in Ukraine was still relatively strong, in spite of occasional periods of tensions and disputes. In 1992, Ukraine agreed to voluntarily remove over 3,000 tactical nuclear weapons, which some see as a great Russian strategic victory. Besides, the post-Soviet Russia managed to keep Belarus in its geopolitical orbit. In 1999, the two countries even formed the Russian-Belarus Union State, although to this day it merely exists only on paper. Even though the Kremlin managed to preserve its influence in most former Soviet republics, the post-USSR Russia faced economic disaster. From 1991 to 1998, Russia lost nearly 30% of its real gross domestic product. Capital was leaving the country en masse, with close to $150 billion worth flowing out between 1992 and 1999. The Western-backed Russian government began implementing a number of radical economic reforms, including price liberalization, mass privatization and the stabilization of the ruble. It was during this period of rapid privatization that Russia's oligarchs gained much of their wealth. They owned everything from sports teams to major oil companies. The IMF backed radical market-oriented reforms, and massive privatization shook the country that was used to state control. The so-called Wild West capitalism meant poverty for many and staggering wealth for the few, as well as crippling economic depression and rampant crime and corruption. Due to instability in the privatization system for farms, Russia was forced to import over 1/3 of its food products by 1997. Once a powerful country that captured Berlin from the Nazis resorted to receive humanitarian aid from the same country it defeated 50 years ago. In the 1990s, Russia, weak and reliant on Western aid, acquiesced unhappily to NATO's advance towards its borders. This allowed the US government to intervene militarily and otherwise in foreign countries without fear of major retaliation. There was no balance of power in world politics anymore, which was a direct consequence of the collapse of the Soviet Union. The fall of the Soviet Empire had far-reaching effects on the world as a whole, particularly amongst former Soviet republics. For some countries such as Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, oil and natural gas exports have created prosperity but have also enabled corruption. Countries such as Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia underwent dramatic transformations by quickly turning to the West, adopting Western ideals and political leanings, while other nations such as Armenia and Tajikistan have struggled to flourish in the post-Soviet era, and many citizens remain poverty-stricken while the states and their politics remain in flux. Russia, on the other hand, turned into a modern colony ruled by oligarchs and politicians who served the Western interests. Many analysts claim that such a practice ended in 1999 when little-known former KGB agent was appointed acting Russian Prime Minister by President Boris Yeltsin. The facts, however, arguably are showing that such claims are quite far from reality. That's all for today, guys. Thanks for watching our first episode in our brand new Russian series. We hope you enjoyed the video and would love to hear your comments below, especially if you are from Russia. Please don't forget to hit the link in the description and go to kjvids.co.uk to subscribe to our plan. We are offering all our YouTube subscribers a lifetime 50% annual discount. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon so we can notify you when episode 2 is released. Thanks for watching again and see you next time.